Hey everybody, welcome to Nintendo Prime, and we're going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch 2. The specs have leaked out there, or at least been confirmed, thanks to some die shots and all that. We have some stuff we need to explain about this because it's getting like the wild, wild west out there when understanding this information, which is, fair. I think it's fair that it is very hard for the layperson to understand this. And obviously, you also have console warriors on top trying to add to this whole shindig. And yes, I know I'm wearing headphones. We've been having some audio issues. I'm at a hotel. For those that don't know, I'm at PAX East out in Boston. I'm at a hotel right now. So we did bring the Rodecaster and all of our stuff is set up, but the audio quality might not be as good. I don't think it's sounding as good going into my laptop personally, but it doesn't really matter. We're doing the best we can to bring you guys coverage of PAX East and also get you the news, right? And also live streams. We'll be live tonight with the Nintendo by podcast. Before I go any further in this, I want to let you know that we do have a sponsor for today's video. This video is sponsored by Ivanki, who sent me a couple of these docks. We're going to focus more on the RGB one because, look, the RGB one is really, really cool. Both these docks essentially do the same thing in terms of like being able to output to a TV or a monitor, Ethernet ports and USB ports and all that, just adding some expansion to your handheld systems. But the RGB one's just really, really cool looking, especially when you're gaming at night. So I'm going to focus on that. The big thing here is that this was an extremely strange sponsorship because these are for Steam Deck. You go to their webpage, everything's about Steam Deck. The cable they give you is for Steam Deck. And as you're seeing, my Nintendo Switch is actually upside down, but the thing is, it works. And when you want a dot to take with you on the go, especially, I find something that's more compact like this to be very useful. And while you can adjust all the angles to fix cooling or whatever you're trying to do, bottom line is this just works. And the charger I have plugged into it is actually the official Nintendo Switch charger. Around the back, you can see an unmatched 14-in-1 ultimate docking solution for all your connectivity needs. But it's kind of crazy because it supports HDMI 2.1 and it can output up to 4K 120 FPS. Obviously, Nintendo Switch doesn't support that, but you know what does support that? Nintendo Switch 2. You know what also has a top USB-C port just like Steam Deck? Nintendo Switch 2. Pretty crazy. So if we can somehow dock this from the top USB-C port on Switch 2, that would be great. I want to be clear, Ivanki's not claiming that this even works with Switch or even works with Switch 2, but the fact that it works with Switch tells me that it obviously is going to end up working with Nintendo Switch 2. Just make sure you use the included charger that comes with Switch 2, because here's the thing, it can take up to a 100-watt charge from your wall, so it can charge your unit. When you're using the Steam Deck, you don't have to output it to a TV, of course. You can just use it as kind of like a stand, so you don't have to hold it, so it's not so heavy, and you can adjust the angles. Also, it has 7 different RGB lighting modes, including the breathing and rainbow wave, and a whole bunch of other ones with different colors like red, blue, purple, green, yellow, so you can really set the mood. And while I'm not showing the other one hooked up, I did hook it up later. They work exactly the same. So these two products work the same. It's really awesome. Shout out to Ivanki for sending them to me, because now I'm actually using them every single day. And you can go ahead and get one for yourself down through the links in the description. Setting that sponsor aside, I want to remind you we are giving away 2 Nintendo Switch 2s right now with Mario Kart bundles. You can go ahead and enter down in the pinned comment or in the description. The information on this video is going to be below the sponsored information. So you're going to see the sponsored information, the links to their stuff, and then below that, you're going to see the link to the giveaway. I wish everyone luck. We'll be drawing the winner about 10 days beforehand. Now, I want to go ahead and let you guys know that we need to get into this. There is a die shot out there. The T239 has fully leaked. It is thanks to a couple users. First, Colonel did a die shot and teamed up with another YouTuber out here. This YouTuber, let me just open this up here and go over, is called Geekerwan. Let me full screen this here for you guys. And it's quite interesting looking at this guy's video. He does do this in English. Look, the bottom line is the die shot confirms a bunch of stuff. So let's go ahead and sift through this. First, this section here, he talks about how he actually tried to power the board on. So when they received this board, they spent about $150 to get it off of the Chinese version of eBay. And they realized this is an actual Switch 2 board. The problem is it doesn't run. They tried to get it powered on. Maybe it's missing some components that allow it to be powered on. Whatever the case is, he did try to power the board on. So to be clear, he tried to run the T239, but he can't. So everything in this video, everything we learned today is not actually with running the Nintendo Switch 2's chip. Okay. So everything is a guess and an estimate, but they are able to go in, they are able to match this up and see this is the same chip that we have seen in leaks in the past. They compare it here to the Switch OLED and the Switch 1 stuff. Same here with the Tegra X1 and all the stuff they did with the die size and the die shrinking they did. All right. So they're able to go in and actually die cast and shave it down and get really good shots of the chip. And one of the first things they discovered is, yes, it is the T239. This is not on the top heat spreader. This is actually when you shave it down and look at the board itself, the T239 is printed on the board. So we do have full confirmation here. They are using the T239. It hasn't been rumored for a long time. The T239 was taped out in 2021. As you can see, this particular one's from 2021. This could have been a sample board. It's could have been a lot of stuff. It appears that, this one that they had has existed for a while. And you see they're comparing it to the GA107 because it is ampere based. But there's some really fascinating stuff with that ampere base. And it's really this. This is the crux of the new stuff we learned today. We do get some confirmations we'll go over, but it is lined up differently. So you're seeing on the left here the T234, which is what people thought it was based on, and then you're seeing the T239. And the big thing you're noticing is how it's laid out is different. The CPU cluster is over here on the right instead of on the left. Okay, you just flip this around, right, and have that same orientation, but the GPU actually goes up and around the CPU and has separated clusters. This is important because no Ampere GPU on the market does this. The T239 is the very first one to do it, and we didn't see NVIDIA do anything like this until Ada Lovelace. So remember when there was rumors about how the GPU could be Ampere based but have Ada Lovelace features? This might have been where it started with the GPU orientation to add in some Ada Lovelace features. I find that to be really interesting. We got over here, we get our confirmation that it is using the A78C. We can approximate the performance of an A78C. Obviously, we had no final clock speeds for all of that, but that's because the A78AE, A78, A78C, these are all things that are in products already. So we already know how well they perform. And let's just say it's significantly better than a PlayStation 4 CPU by a pretty wide margin, like 200 something percent you're going to see. But yeah, let's go ahead and continue here. You can see obviously comparing it to the A78AE, and what they're basically noticing is that AE stands for automotive, C stands for more like performance, like gaming sort of performance and stuff like that. But they have very similar designs. There's a couple differences, of course, in how they're designed. Including the fact that it does appear to be 8 nanometers. That's what this is showing. So these are all 5 nanometer processing nodes. These are 8 nanometer. It looks like it's 8 nanometer processing node all over. It's not completely 8 nanometer. There's some 10 nanometer parts in there as well. But for the most part, it seems to be based on 8 nanometers. And this is the layout we're talking about here. So yeah, you can see your 64-bit, your memory control, and all that stuff. Your PCI E 4.0 times X slot. But really what matters is that GPU lineup. This GPU lineup with the 1 megabyte of L2 cache. This separated cluster from here is something we haven't seen in NVIDIA outside of Ada Lovelace. And that actually makes this a completely customized Ampere chip. There is not a single Ampere chip out there that works this way, and nobody's quite sure why it does this. I think that that's quite interesting because, again, we can't run this chip right now. So you see here some confirmation on some stuff here where this is where they talk about how it actually lines up with the Ada stuff rather than standard Ampere. And you can see there's even like these different sizes on their SMs that didn't exist in any prior product. They're not really sure what the hell is going on because it's bigger than the RTX like 3000 series GPU ones, but then it's smaller than the Orin ones. It's crazy that this is just customized. All we're learning here is this is a completely customized component. This is where they get into the 8 nanometer and the 10 nanometer stuff. You see where like some of this is 8, some of this is 10, and it lines up with different GPUs. But what really matters is when they go into here and they start to compare it to the RTX 2050. They are able to downclock an RTX 2050 to get simulated results for the GPU. But this is where I have to tell you guys, while the RTX 2050 can give you some simulated results, remember what I said? There is not a single, and let me just repeat this. There is not a single Ampere GPU set up this way. So no matter how much you simulate it, you're never going to actually hit the real performance of a T239. chances are games will outperform what is shown in the simulation. So as we play some of the video here, you'll see that they're basically just taking a look at different games. Actually, this part I wanted to pause because this is the thing that you're seeing shared everywhere. And this is what has people going, oh, see, look, a simulated docked one's kind of like around a GTX 1050 Ti. And in what is it? Handheld mode, it's right around a 750 Ti. LOL Switch 2. Outside of the fact that both of these specs are ahead of a simulated PS4. And this is what we have to note. All these consoles are simulated, which I find to be absolutely hilarious, that some of these consoles have been hacked and we have the ability to maybe run 3D Mark on them, but for some reason they've chosen not to. This is all simulated. We don't actually know what the real world performance is. It's why you have to note the simulated for GPU performance. This doesn't tell you anything, and this is only one GPU test. It could excel in other areas, such as DLSS, where we've already seen the custom version of DLSS running on this seems to run better in some aspects than comparative performant PC versions. And that's probably because it's fully customized for whatever the hell this architecture is, because it's definitely Ampere, but they're using an ADA setup. There's a reason for it. Maybe that DLSS performance is that reason. Who's to know? But we also get some light GPU performance in here as well. And again, it's just showing what we've already seen. Again, these charts have been flying around and people have been using it to attack the Switch 2. This is where I have to note, this is not the actual performance of a Switch 2. This is a simulated performance on an Ampere chip mobile in a laptop that is not set up in the same way as the Switch 2's one. So that is very interesting to consider. And remember, the performance of games comes down to CPU and GPU. And while people are mocking and making fun of this, wait till you get to the CPU performance, which is something that we can actually approximate. So you're seeing games here. All of them are running fairly well. You're seeing, obviously, Black Myth Wukong running. But I want to focus on, obviously, the CPU aspect. So this is kind of what they use to do the testing, because the AE cores are very similar to the C cores. They're just made for different parts. And here's where things get really fascinating. Again, this is still simulated, but look at this. Look at the base PS4. Look at the base Switch, right? The Switch was a little less than half of a PS4. The Snapdragon obviously was 845 was much better than the PS4. Look at the simulated T239, which again, this simulation is more accurate because the A78C is something that we can actually measure a bit better. That performance is like 200% plus more than a PS4. So comparing this to PS4, where the GPU is better than the PS4, but the CPU is also significantly better than a PS4, things are looking pretty dang good for Switch 2 to be a much better than PlayStation 4 performance. Remember that, that's the common thing people are saying, oh, it's PS4 performance, it's PS4 performance, or it's PS4 performance on the go. And it's like, but everything about it's better than PS4. So no, it's not. Now, it's not PS5. Obviously, it's less than half of performance of a 8-core, 16-thread, 3.5 gigahertz plugged into your wall PS5. Obviously, but still, it's doing pretty well, and it's staying within the ballpark of a Snapdragon 855, an Apple A12, and even an i7 4700HQ. It is right in the ballpark of all of those, which to me is fascinating because like some of those are much higher clocked, and yet at the lower clock speeds, it is 1.1 and 1 gigahertz. It is actually holding its own. So that's important to note. Obviously, you get the Steam Deck. People are going to be like, oh, it's less performant than the Steam Deck. I get it. That's what it says on paper. On paper, performance is not the same as actualization performance. These are obviously just benchmarks. The way that these things operate are not obviously directly comparable. They're using different stuff, but it is just interesting to look at it and see that there is a 66% improvement in CPU performance on the Steam Deck. All right. So that's kind of this is where we get like the huge performance increase over. I mean, look at that, 569 to 598% performance over Switch. Absolutely insane. So yeah, they did some testing. They tried to simulate and all that and get as close as they could to certain aspects. But in the end, the bottom line is that the Nintendo Switch 2 is just very, very, very competent. It is not shocking. It is not blowing people's minds. It's also not just bad, right? It is basically somewhere in between. It's not the absolute most amazing thing ever. It's also not the lowest end, and it's using some completely custom stuff that we can't measure. And that's what's excited is that they did choose to go fully custom. They're not just using off-the-shelf designs, and because of that, they're able to actually do some stuff that we might not be able to measure. I have a feeling that despite whatever performance we see in these simulated games, that it probably performs a little bit better. All right, guys, I got to go and get ready for the Nintendo Byte podcast. I hope to catch all of you guys there, and I will catch you in the next video.